What the hell does that mean, huh? China is here? I don't even know what the hell that means. All I know is this Lo Pan character comes out of thin air in the middle of a goddamn alley while his buddies are flying around on wires cutting everybody to shreds. And he just stands there waiting for me to drive my truck straight through him with light coming out of his mouth.
That's from Big Trouble in Little China, ain't it?
It very much is. You
Oh my
got it.
goodness, I knew one of Joey's off the top.
You and I have unfinished business.
Oh? And what's so stinking about it?
Nobody catch it feeling. Spirit is something.
I think this just might be my masterpiece.
It happens.
Welcome to Season 3, Episode 13 of the Average Joe's Movie Club cast. It's Justin.
And I'm Joey. And tonight we are talking about bombs. Blonde bombshells, that is, in Billy Wilder's 1955 rom-com, The 7-Year Itch, starring the prototype of all blonde bombshells, Marilyn Monroe, before we jump across the pond for Woody Allen's 2005 dark romantic drama, Matchpoint, starring Scarlett Johansson. Pretty much the modern day Marilyn Monroe, minus the seduction of the president on national television and opiate abuse. But
Just a heads up, we do discuss these movies in full, step by step, in depth, some analysis if we get there. And so yeah, skip anything, you don't want to be spoiled for you.
and if you want to be a part of the club, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment, because we would love to hear from you.
Merry Christmas, Joey.
Yes, Merry Christmas to you, Justin. Happy holidays, everybody out there listening. How are things your way?
Christmas Eve. I have this very festive looking drink here that I have concocted. It is a base of Irish cream, alcoholic version, and then the green stuff is cream de mint, and then I topped it off with a little eggnog. So far, so good.
Interesting. I have a red Solo cup full of Dr. Perky, because we're starting to record this very close to my bedtime, and I would like to make it through. Because while it is Christmas Eve, it will be Christmas Eve before we finish recording.
Most likely, for sure. Yeah, so Christmas time taking 2 weeks off work. The first weekend was just kind of crawling along, but now it's zooming by. We're almost into Friday here, but that's good. We'll have fun stuff to do with the kids next week, and then some bowl games coming up. So yeah, it's the best time of the year. Christmas lights came up. I was dreading it, kind of putting it off for a little while, but they came up a little quicker than I imagined, and all that's fun. And yeah, been sneaking in a few new Christmas classics I'd never seen before, so that's all good. And did a couple road trips. Went up to Busch Gardens for their holiday thing. Went up to Columbia Zoo for their holiday thing, and even went by the Festival of Lights here in Charleston, James Island area. So it's always a festive time of year, especially when you got the kids.
Nice. Well, I don't get 2 weeks off because even though I switched jobs, I am still in retail. But I did get off at 3 o'clock today. I'm going to get off at 3 o'clock tomorrow on Christmas Eve. I'm off Christmas Day. And because my store is closed on Sunday, just automatically, I'm off on Sunday. And then it'll be the same thing. It won't get off early on Christmas or on New Year's Eve, but New Year's Day and the day after is I'm off. So that's a definite big change of pace from what I'm used to in the holidays. Not getting any time off. So that's I'm pretty excited for that. I'm gonna get to go. Obviously, I'm gonna see my mom, my stepdad, my brother, my sister, my brother-in-law on Saturday, and then I'm gonna go over to my dad's house and see my dad. And they're not my in-laws, but I mean they might as well be. It's his girlfriend's family. They've been together for I don't know a long time now. So I'm gonna go see all of them.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna have some friends coming in that live out of town. They're gonna be visiting, and we're gonna get to hang out over the next couple of days. So
Nice. Do you have New Year's plans?
I haven't got that far yet. We'll figure that out when that comes. I'm just trying to get through this right here. Speaking of Christmassy stuff that you watched, so the new Christmas classic, Hawkeye just finished up. It's definitely definitely a very Christmas themed show. And then I've watched 3 Christmas movies so far. I'm planning on watching Die Hard tomorrow night on Christmas Eve.
Very cool.
And then I did watch 2 of them are going to be they were for Schlock Talk. It's Santa Jaws and Silent Night, Deadly Night. They're going to be dropping at 10 a.m. on Christmas Day for all of you guys' listening pleasure while you're traveling wherever you need to go. So that's kind of what I've been up to.
Right on. Yeah, I hadn't caught up with. I've only seen the first half of episode 1 of Hawkeye. So is that have you caught up on all of the shows?
I binge watched all of Hawkeye yesterday.
Okay, but have you done Loki yet?
No, I've still not watched Loki.
Okay.
I've seen all of them but Loki, but my desire to see Loki is not very high.
Really? It's a good show.
I mean, I've heard that, but Loki doesn't do anything for me. Like, Tom Hiddleston is great, and he does a great job in the character, but just, like, he just doesn't do anything for me. So, at some point, I probably will, because I've watched everything else that's canonically Marvel. Well, I guess I haven't finished What If. I watched a couple episodes and just, But,
oh, wow. What if ends real strong? I'd recommend finishing that one.
Well, the episode I wanted I didn't realize it was the first episode, and that was Captain Carter. And then I got to the one where it was going to be like, what if zombies? And I was just like, oh.
Yeah, that was a bit weird, but yeah, that was a surprisingly good show.
Yeah, zombies just don't do it for me. So, it just kind of.
Towards the end, we get this like Captain Marvel versus Thor like throwdown. And that's a lot of fun.
Okay, that could be cool. I need to watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, and Endgame to finish my 2021 rewatch of the MCU. But I don't really want to watch Ant-Man. I think I'm just going to skip it and watch Captain Marvel and Endgame. And I guess I should watch Far From Home, but that movie didn't really do much for me, so I would rather just go watch the new Spider-Man movie.
Okay. All right, let's get into a little movie trivia. You want me to go first or you?
Yeah, sure, you can go first.
Okay. I picked mine based off of tonight's flicks of Matchpoint and 7 Year Itch. All right. All right, so Billy Wilder preferred to shoot in black and white. Can you guess why he shot this one in color?
Something to do with Marilyn Monroe.
That's correct. It was part of Marilyn Monroe's contract with Fox to be shot in black and white, or to be shot in color. The later movie, Some Like It Hot, like one of my favorite comedies of all time that I saw a couple of years ago, that is shot in black and white. And it's really neat how, this shows her like blonde hair in all its glory, but she's even more dazzling in black and white. So, all right.
It's really interesting, like when you get movies from like in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and you don't know if it's going to be in color or black and white. It just really depends on like the budget of the movie at the time. Because this is like in 1955, but then you still have black and white movies in the 60s. So it's just, I think that's very interesting. And this was my second Monroe movie. The first one, which was kind of a bit character, was Asphalt Jungle, which was in black and white. So.
All right.
All right. So mine are all Christmas themed questions.
Okay.
As you know, we're in that time of the year.
Ho ho.
All right. What is the #1 grossing Christmas movie all time at the box office?
Is it A Wonderful Life?
It is not A Wonderful Life. I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
#1 and #3 are about the same character.
1 and 3 are the same character.
Yes. Different movies, like 15 years, 16 years apart or something like that.
So it is a Christmas movie though?
Yes.
Okay. That Home Alone?
Home Alone is #2.
Okay.
It was #1 for almost 30 years.
And so this movie has a sequel?
No, this movie is a different movie about the same character that the #3 movie was about.
I mean, is this character like Santa Claus? Because there's
Character is not Santa Claus.
Huh.
I can't tell you who it is because it'll give it away.
Is it the Grinch?
It is the 2018 animated Grinch movie.
That's the #1 box office. Wow.
For Christmas movies at $511.6 million, beating out Home Alone, which was the champion for 28 years, at $476.7 million, which I might note was in 1990. So that's kind of impressive. And then #3 was How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the Jim Carrey movie, if I'm not mistaken, at $345 million.
Oh, you're saying the Illumination animated Grinch is at #1?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's even more surprising, but all right. So 7-Year Itch was originally a stage play. How many characters reprised their role from the stage play in the movie?
I know at least one because it was in the Wikipedia.
Right.
Which was I think was Richard Jefferson, the actor who played Richard Jefferson.
Yep, Tom Ewell.
Yep.
So they brought him back to
Richard Sherman, excuse me.
Right.
Don't ever come at me with some weak ass wide receiver. Anyway, one. That's my guess. One.
Yep, just him. Great job reprising that role.
Yes. All right. This one I'm gonna go ahead. This one is probably a little bit more difficult than the first one.
Oh, it be.
Well, I mean, the first one is, okay. What was the first time that Santa Claus appeared in a movie?
Is it Miracle on 34th Street?
No, it is well before Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It is technically a short, and it is a silent movie.
A short silent movie with Santa Claus in it. I mean, is this like everybody knows this, or?
No, I had no clue. I Googled what was the first time he appeared in a movie, just to see what it was, and I thought it was interesting bit of trivia.
Yeah. What's the answer?
The answer is the 1898 2-minute silent movie Santa Claus.
Oh, there you go.
And apparently, it changed how they did movies at that point, like going forward. Obviously, it was very early in that time period, but still, I thought that was very interesting. If you had pulled that out of your ass, I would have been surprised.
All right. True or false? Woody Allen is not a fan of Matchpoint.
False.
That's correct. He is a big fan of this movie. This is his favorite movie he's ever directed.
That I did not know. I did know that he had to redo it because he could get it financed in England and couldn't get it financed in America. So it was supposed to take place in New York instead of London. But
All right.
all right, number 12. What is the most decorated Christmas movie by the Academy or by the Oscars, whatever you want to call it?
Okay. The most decorated Christmas movie. Is it... Gosh. Awesome blank radio.
Well, it is
Is it a traditional Christmas movie?
Yep, traditional Christmas movie and a very big Christmas movie. Very well known.
Okay.
And it is older.
So is it the original Miracle on 34th?
Yes, that is correct. It won for Best Supporting Actor for Edmund Green, Original Story, and Screenplay. It was also nominated for Best Picture, which it lost to Gentleman's Agreement, and it also tied with Gentleman's Agreement for the most wins that year at 3. There was another one of the big ones, which I don't remember because I forgot to type it out, that had like 5 or 6 nominations one year, but didn't get any of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's funny. That was like my guess, but I was like scared to throw it out again since I'd previously thrown it out and it was wrong. And I saw Gentleman's Agreement this month, so that's kind of a fun coincidence.
Oh, that works itself out.
True or false? Matchpoint was a bomb at the U.S. box office.
Probably true.
That is actually false. Matchpoint was Woody Allen's first movie since Hannah and Her Sisters from 1986 that turned a profit at the U.S. box office.
Okay, so it turned a profit, but it was it like a big profit, or you didn't look at numbers?
I didn't see in the specifics. It was just his first film in a long time to make decent money in the U.S.
Okay. All right, so...
Which, I mean, he makes art films, so that's understandable. I actually saw it in the theater in Sweden.
Oh, nice. Nice. All right, this is the last one I got for you. Which Christmas movie won the prestigious Best Foreign Language Film from the Japanese Academy of Motion Picture Arts?
Oh. Give me a kind of a decade range for this one.
80s.
Okay. Christmas Story?
No, this is considered nowadays like a modern classic, I guess. But yeah, obviously it's from the 80s, so it's pretty old, I guess, at this point. It's 30 plus years old.
All right, so an 80s Christmas classic.
Lots of very well-known one-liners.
It's not Die Hard, is it?
It is very much Die Hard.
Okay.
Look, we couldn't do Christmas without me talking, or I couldn't do Christmas trivia without throwing in something Die Hard, and it's on the background on your letterbox right now, so like I had to include it.
Nice. I might watch that later tonight. We'll see how it goes. All right, it's time to chat more about what we've been watching lately in the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, my lineup is feel good fun and so much goodness and wow. Yeah, we're keeping upbeat with this holiday stuff.
You're gonna see a trend in mine. So we got the nostalgia van, we got the gothic nostalgia, and we got the nostalgia ship.
Oh. What's the Gothic about?
All right, so that is clearly all of these are rewatches if we're talking nostalgia. This is Underworld.
Okay.
So I was wanted to watch something, but I didn't really want to pay attention to it. I just wanted to watch something kind of dumb, and I don't know what I was picking between, but I was like, "Oh yeah, this has got Kate Beckinsale, so this is easy to watch, and it's got a hot chick. I'm in." Well, this is the first time I'd actually watched the steelbooks that my buddy had given me a few years ago, and I didn't realize that this was the unrated and uncut or extended version of this movie. So.
Okay.
Normally, this is an hour and a half long movie. This movie was like 2 hours and 10 minutes long,
Oh, wow.
which did not need to be that long. It really messed up like the pacing and added in some stuff that you just didn't need.
Okay.
Like it added a sex scene that you kind of already knew was probably a thing between Craven and Erica, I think, the blonde chick. But then it's also an uncut movie, and it's added in a sex scene, and there's no nudity. Like, and don't get me wrong, you don't need nudity in a movie or anything by any means, but it's like, if you're going to extend this movie and ruin the timing, like, you could at least give me something here. I still love Underworld, the movie. I just prefer the normal cut. Or I think I used to watch the DVD I had before I got the Blu-ray was an extended cut, but it was like 3 minutes longer, 5 minutes longer, something like that. So I'm just going to stay away from crazy much longer, like 20 or 30 minute longer extended cuts, because I feel like it throws it off.
Okay.
All right, what is your so much goodness?
That one would be French Dispatch. So finally got a chance to see Wes Anderson's new movie, and the common comment on this movie is it's a whole lot to take in, which I was quite dazzled by, to be honest. I'd have to probably look at it beat by beat to really gain an appreciation for everything, but it's all interconnected. It's about this French paper that's like being published in Kansas, and it's all these little vignettes of French happenings. I mean, there's like a revolutionary chapter. There's a chapter. I'm blanking on it so much now since there's so much that happens and so much I've seen since then. But it's Wes Anderson at his most Wes Anderson, and the guy keeps getting better. Definitely recommend French Dispatch. Instantly became my new favorite movie of the year.
Nice. All right, what you got for me?
What about that van?
The van. That van is from Dunder Mifflin. Okay, it's not really from Dunder Mifflin, but it is from Scranton, PA to Chicago, Illinois. As we discussed a little while ago, the number 2 grossing Christmas movie of all time in Home Alone. Okay. Hadn't watched it in years. Put it on. I still knew pretty much everything that was going to happen where it was going to happen. It still brought a smile to my face. Like, him turning on the movie, Dirty Faces.
Angels with Dirty Faces, right?
Angels with Dirty Souls is the name of the movie in the movie, but yes, it's Angels with Dirty Faces, which is it's based off of. But yeah, no, the whole thing just beat by beat, just it still hit all the feels, all the nostalgia, and now being like an adult and having seen John Hughes movies, even though he didn't direct this, Chris Columbus did. John Hughes produced it, and you could see the fingerprints on it. Like, it's still a coming of age story. It's just not teenagers. It's obviously an 8-year-old boy, but there's a lot to it. And a lot of times you get a nostalgia movie, especially from one when you were a kid. Underworld, I was a teenager in my early 20s, whatever. So there's that nostalgia, but there's not that kid nostalgia. And a lot of times you get those movies in. Like, they're good to be kid movies. They're not actually good. Like, I will... Home Alone is still an actual good movie. So... Could never happen.
It'd be interesting to see what you think of the sequel now.
Oh, yeah. I haven't watched the sequel. And that one I did not see near as much. I don't have near the attachment, like, in my head about it. I mean, obviously, I know he gets left, gets left in New York, and it's kind of the repeat, and they're out of jail and all
Yeah.
of that. But
There's a really good How Did This Get Made? Not How Did This Get Made? The Films That Made Us episode on Home Alone on Netflix.
okay,
Tells all
all right,
the backstory, how it all came together.
all right. So we did so much goodness, right? All right, let's do feel good fun.
All right, so I went and saw the latest from Disney, which is Encanto, which I believe takes place in Colombia. Same folks that made Frozen, and gosh, Disney still knows how to make fantastic musicals. My toe was tapping throughout this whole thing. It's a really sweet story about this girl who has a magical family, but for some reason the magic never passed on to her, and so she's dealing with like the envy of like her whole family being magical and helping the town, but really she's the foundation, the heart and soul. Really awesome magical journey that goes, and there's actually not even, well, spoiler on Encanto, there's not even a antagonist in this movie, which is kind of a cool twist, since all those Disney movies lately have been like, hey, he's our friend, oh no, he's the secret antagonist at the end. So it doesn't pull that on you. Magical house, so much creativity, so colorful. Instantly fell in love with the, I guess she's a Disney princess, I forgot what her name is off the top of my head, but Encanto's just a joy to watch.
All right, so all I have left is the nostalgia ship, and I believe this is actually a movie from the same year as Underworld, and that's going to be the OG Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
Yeah, threw that in a couple weeks ago. Still love it. I mean, some of the CGI looks very dated now. I mean, it's 18 years old, but like you can tell it was still very good CGI. I mean, it's a Disney movie, for crying out loud. But still love Jack Sparrow, still love Will Turner, Miss Swan, Elizabeth Swan, like Jeffrey Rush. Oh my God, Jeffrey Rush. Like, and I watched this and then into Pirates 2 the next day. And while Bill Nighy is real good as Davy Jones, he's just not Jeffrey Rush. Like, that movie was still good, but like it was missing Jeffrey Rush. And then it hit that ending to Pirates 2 where Johnny's gone and you've got Jeffrey Rush comes back and you're like, oh shit, and the movie ends. Like, that was some good stuff. So somehow you have not seen Pirates of the Caribbean, any of them, or the first one, or it's been a while. Rewatch it. I'm probably gonna, it may not be this month, but I'm definitely gonna watch the next 3. I remember enjoying 3. 4 I thought was very meh, and then 5 I enjoyed. I actually was one of the last movies I saw at the drive-in in Beaufort before I moved back to Florence. So
Okay. Yeah, it's surprising how much stronger the pacing is in that first Pirates movie compared to its predecessor, since they tried to jam so much stuff into it. So, yeah, I enjoyed digging into that trilogy, and then haven't gotten to the 4th one again, and I believe I've done the 5th one. There's Stranger Tides, and then there's Dead Man's Sail. There are 5 of them, right?
Yeah, so it's Curse of the Black Pearl, Dead Man's Chest, At World's End. That's the first 3.
On Stranger Tides.
On Stranger Tides, that's the one with Ian McShane and Penelope Cruz. And then I don't remember what the 5th one is, but I think Jeffrey Rush is back in that one.
I think it's Dead Men Tell No Tales, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Javier Bardem, I think, plays the villain in that one.
Yeah, who, by the way, is such a good villain in like everything that he's in. Also, Pirates of the Caribbean is my favorite ride at Disney World. So if I go to Disney World, we ride Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't care if I don't ride anything else. I ride fucking Pirates of the Caribbean.
Wow.
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, my last one is a wow. And so I'm going to talk briefly about that Spider-Man No Way Home. Saw it on opening night with a very festive crowd. A little too festive. They were, have you shielded yourself from all spoilers?
Yes.
I'm not going to spoil nothing.
Can't take no chances, fam.
Man, this audience was erupting over everything in this movie. Um,
Oh, so it was in game. Okay, I got you.
no, my No Way Home audience was more rowdy than my in-game audience. Yeah, every little reference, yeah, they got really excited about. I had this guy behind me making comments about like what was going on throughout, which was super annoying, especially like when certain characters were in jeopardy and such. Really neat premise. I kind of wish they would have taken it even a little farther, so I could have had some surprises. Because, man, everything you kind of want to happen here, you're good, and yeah, it's a celebration of all things Spider-Man, really bringing it all together. And it was fun to go back to the Amazing Spider-Man last night after seeing a lot of this and seeing what exactly doesn't work about those movies, compared to what the MCU did compared to what Raimi did. So got to see
Oh,
Spider-Man No Way Home in a theater.
well, yeah, Raimi didn't do the Amazing Spider-Mans. He did the first three. He did the Tobey Spider-Mans.
I know, but comparing the MCU ones to Raimi's to
Okay,
Mark Webb.
I'm not sure. Probably that sounds right. So yeah, if I get to go and see this, um, the day after Christmas or sometime next week, it'll be my first movie in 2 years at the movie theater.
Oh,
And it'll be
you still haven't broken the picket line, huh?
no, I mean so our Regal Cinema was closed for a very long time, and we only had the kind of like the locally owned theater, which completely renovated. But like when Godzilla came out, we just for whatever reason we couldn't, and we had HBO Max, so it was just like we're not going to spend the money.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I want to go see this, and I don't want to wait for it to be on um
Disney Plus.
D plus. Like I didn't go for Black Widow, which I doubt was like maybe the most disappointing movie of the year for me because Black Widow is like one of my two favorite MCU characters. Um, so yeah, no, this will be the break when I break it or should be, and it'll be the third movie in a trilogy that's under the Disney umbrella that used to not be under the Disney umbrella. But from all accounts, this is much better than that other movie, which was Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, wait, let's get into these. Oh, yes, and then I'm kind of kicking myself for scheduling to do the podcast now because, yeah, like I said, I took a break from the movie we were watching to watch Amazing Spider-Man with the kids, and then yeah, that Matrix is floating right there on HBO Max to watch, and have not carved out the time to watch it.
I've heard very mixed things about that, and actually, right now, that would be one I would watch here at the house, but I don't have Max at the moment, so
Okay. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
curious to check it out, but I'm also curious to check out what One Night in Soho, and I'm really curious to check out The Last Duel. So, but yeah, there's a lot out.
Soho is so good. It is so good. Last Duel I want to see. I wanted to see like Cry Macho and Stillwater, and I haven't got to see them yet. So
Yeah, I forgot
um,
about Cry Macho.
yeah.
All right, our first feature movie is 7-Year Itch. This was from 1955, a romantic comedy film directed by Billy Wilder, adapted from a 1952 three-act play. The film stars the lovely Marilyn Monroe, Tom Hewell. It contains one of the most notable images of the 20th century. Monroe standing on a subway grate, and her white dress is blown upwards by a passing train. We don't quite get the angle maybe you were hoping for in that, but it's there nonetheless. And yeah, the premise, thanks to IMDb, when his family goes away for the summer, a faithful husband with an overactive imagination is tempted by his beautiful neighbor upstairs. 7-Year Itch, you wanted some more Wilder? I gave you some more Wilder, and I don't think this one disappointed at all. What
No,
do
it
you
did
think?
not disappoint. Like I put in my letterbox review, it didn't quite hit me the same way that Sabrina did. Um, but again, as I'm turning into a huge fanboy of Bogey and Audrey, the two of them together. I mean, they're just powerhouses and icons for very good reasons. So, and I think also the way this movie, while it is a rom-com, the way it goes about it, and the whole a husband, it's the infidelity thing just turned me off a little bit, but the movie itself is still fantastic.
Oh, interesting.
Well, obviously, like I've never been married, and I've never had, as far as I know, any of my partners be, cheat on me or anything. But it was just you watch the movie, and you always hear about men going through their midlife crisis, and that guy's like 39, so he's not much older than you and I are, and he's trying to run around with like a 23-year-old, and his wife's away, and he's all the different fantasies about how he could do things, and that I don't know. It just seems like now this movie, maybe I'm getting too used to living in like a woke culture or something. Like I feel like it would this movie would not get made the same way today.
It would definitely be scrutinized. I agree. I was just listening to a podcast on Love Actually, and they were kind of addressing some of these topics in terms of how men view women, and yeah, this was definitely of its era, and I absolutely adored the audaciousness of the movie, coming from a married man. But I'll let you finish your thought.
Oh, I mean, and I have no issues with movies tackling issues that aren't happy or happy-go-lucky, like because not everything in our life is always happy or pleasant. So that part, it being about infidelity, like it was just that it was almost framed like it was normal or okay. And that was, I guess, the part that I didn't like, was that even though he never really did anything, I mean, he did kiss this woman a few times, and then, he's running back off to his wife at the end, and it's just like, nothing, there was no consequences. And if there were, they were, off camera where we don't know about them or see them. So I think that was my main issue, where it's like, it essentially kind of gave you a happy ending. And I didn't feel that this necessarily needed a happy ending, unless his happy ending was redemption. And I don't think that was there in the movie.
Seems like I read this one quite a bit differently. Let's go through our notes, and we'll maybe come back to that.
All right, fair enough. So the first thing I noticed in this movie was that opening animation screen, where it had these blocks, and they were kind of opening up like doors, and they would give you all of the information, like starring this and cinematography by yada yada yada. I thought that was really cool. I'm not even gonna lie, I had a brain fart for a second, and I was like, man, how the hell they have CGI this good back then? And I was like, wait, it's not CGI, you idiot.
It's animation. Oh, you're talking about whenever the titles actually itched itself?
Or the whole thing. And I was just like, man, this CGI is better than some of the shit I've been watching lately. And I was like, well, wait, it's because it's animated. Yeah. Like, it was just that brief thought, and then it was like, oh man, I feel so stupid. But that opening animation was fantastic. Like, I immediately was like, okay, I love this movie just off of this alone. And then, we talked about it being in color. We had to do the trivia earlier. Like that style of coloration, I guess, Technicolor. Yep. And I was watching like the Blu-ray of it, and it was just, or I guess a Blu-ray restored digital copy, but it was just so vibrant and good colors. I mean, it's not up there in terms of like a Jacques Demy movie, and when it comes to color or anything, because I don't know if anything ever will be, but it definitely had just all these bright colors, and it just looked really good, especially to be as old as it is.
The movie definitely lives in its time of what it was made in the mid-50s. There's kind of an unfortunate opening to this thing, as it goes into ancient New York City, where there's a Native American tribe, and unfortunately most of them are folks dressed up in brown makeup to appear like Native Americans. So that's obviously going to rub I mean, even myself the wrong way. It's just kind of, it's, you hate hearing about stuff like that, and then you go back and watch it, and yeah, there it is in full view. So wasn't crazy about the brown face there at the beginning, because and even in that opening, it's just like, but this has nothing to do with our story. Just not the Native Americans in particular, but it's there to show that like this idea of like this strange premise of the women and children leaving New York and the guys staying there to hunt. It's kind of a ridiculous premise, but it's just there to show that's been going on for ages.
Yeah, there was like 400 years in the future, just now more modern. But yeah, that is kind of, it's just this. Oh, we're gonna send them up, where it's cooler. And I'm just like, but it's New York. It's already cooler as someone who, has lived in South Carolina their whole life.
Yeah. So the main character, Richard, he's a happily married guy. And I just love how Wilder kind of captures this, everything about him from the fact, we hear his internal thoughts. I related a lot to this guy because, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna stay monogamous. But man, shame on those guys for chasing skirts, right after the train pulls out, because you can tell, he wants to be faithful. But I mean, speaking for myself, I know some guys are very, we get attracted to a lot of stuff that goes on around us. So I thought this movie, really kind of hit the core with what a lot of men go through, being monogamous.
I mean, yeah, I can see that. Again, like not married, obviously, been in relationships, and it's just, obviously you're obviously going to look at people, you're going to be attracted to them. It's just human nature. So like, yeah, I think that's hit on the nose pretty well. It's just a lot different than what a lot of the guys that he was, implying in the movie, or even the one guy who went out with the lady with the fat poodle later in the movie, like where they're actually being not monogamous, where they're being
They're actually cheating.
Yes, infidelity. I was trying, yeah, infidelity. There we go. So
I thought it was cool that he works at like a book publisher that likes to sex up like the covers to the books. So like in the opening, I think they're like, hey, so what do you think of this Little Women's cover? And Little Women's all this, it's a real female story about these sisters bonding, but they sex it up into some kind of dormitory thing. And then his only comment is that you should be able to see the cleavage on the girls, and then he signs off on it. So
yeah, and they're selling for like $0.25 a piece or something. I think the most ridiculous thing is not ridiculous, but just telling thing of like when it was he goes to breakfast at like the health food place a little bit after where we're at, and his meal of healthy food and a drink was like $1 and some change, and I'm just like, bruh, I want to live in those times.
Yeah, different era for sure. So I noticed with watching this movie that Wilder does like to make these things about these stories about people battling certain urges or things around them. So like in The Lost Weekend, that's all about a guy like hunkering down to get over alcoholism. The Apartment is all about this guy that rents out or like lets his bosses use his apartment for their affairs and so forth, and how he feels about that and like corporate America. So yeah, Wilder makes a lot of interesting humanistic stories with more of a comedic slant to them. I was not as big of a fan as the apartment as I was of this one, but yeah, I'll be curious to see what your take on more of them are. So yeah, the wife reminds Richard, don't cut loose, don't smoke, don't drink, and now I don't smoke, but I tell you, whenever the wife goes off with her mother-in-law to go take care of some stuff, usually I'm kicking up and relaxing, not getting promiscuous by any means, but
Calm down, Nelly Furtado.
All right, so Marilyn is, of course, stunning in this movie. So I fell in love with her on Some Like It Hot, and I liked her in this one. Was not as crazy about her in Asphalt Jungle, just because she's not portrayed in that. I mean, she's portrayed as this,
She's the side woman, right?
an attractive young starlet, but definitely not the focus in that one. I
Yeah.
believe that was more of a heist movie.
Yes.
So yeah, of course, this guy is gonna like fantasize about her, and I love the little running joke about how he'll turn his head and turn his head and turn his head until he finally gets a crick in it from staring at her. So
Yeah, he definitely tried
I
to
found
break
it quite relatable.
Yeah, he definitely broke his neck as she was going up the stairs. So I mean, look, she was rocking that dress, brother. I can't even. She was rocking everything. Let's be real.
Yeah, and every time you see her, she's just even better. My favorite scene had to be the imaginary conversation with his wife, where he's like lamenting on all these instances where like, oh, my secretary tried to seduce me and my nurse tried to seduce me, and it's all like this huge fantasy in his head. And she's like, you have such an active imagination, dear. But just the way how like, in a lot of ways, I felt like this movie was a guy that didn't like have a lot of confidence in himself, end up meeting a friend that kind of brings that out of him. So that's kind of where I was kind of channeling where my overall takeaway from this. But in this movie, in this part, it was like he was compensating for like saying, oh, you're so lucky that I'm staying monogamous because all these people have been throwing themselves at me. And she's like, yes, whatever you say, dear, because he's full of shit. But yeah, I felt like he was overcompensating.
Yeah, there's definitely some delusions of grandeur there, and maybe you are right. Maybe he'd been married. Maybe he wasn't confident at all to start with, or maybe it's just he's been married, for 7 years or so now, and maybe he hasn't been getting attention of other women or something, and so he's making it up in his head. And then of course once he's already talked to Marilyn in the stairwell and all of that, and so he's gotten that little bit of attention, and it's just got his head rushing.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you caught the homage to. Well, I mean, they actually say it. So whenever they mention From Here to Eternity, which was a Best Picture winner, when they mimic the kissing on the beach scene. And fun fact, if you actually watch From Here to Eternity, you'll notice a lot of similarities to Pearl Harbor by Michael Bay.
Oh, okay. There's 8 million explosions.
Very, very similar story, just not quite as hammy.
I got you.
The look on his face whenever he almost gets hit by the tomato plant, because he's like, oh, you almost killed me, how dare you, and she pokes her adorable looking face over the balcony there, and he's just like, well, hello there.
Yeah, and she's also naked, or very heavily implied that she's naked.
I think that was the scene where she mentioned that she kept her underwear in the freezer, which is just crazy.
Yeah, for the first time she mentions it. Yeah, because she's leaned over and all the foliage, so you can see that her shoulders have nothing on it, and the foliage is in, there to cover up her goods. And yeah, I think that's when she mentions, when he invites her down, she's like, oh yeah, I gotta get my underwear out of the freezer or something.
I just adored this guy's overactive imagination. Like, as each situation presented itself, he would think about like the ramifications and specific things he would do and what he want to happen. So it was so cool to see all this visualized within a movie. I found it all really relatable with, him like hoping it was going to play out one way, but then there's consequences. And anywho. Let's see.
And it is a big contrast from usually like the lead is kind of the suave, like the guy is the strong character, he's the suave one, he's typically the aggressive one. Mm-hmm. And in this movie, not that necessarily Marilyn was aggressive, but she was the character who was suave, and she was the cool as a cucumber, and she was the one that kind of, it was obviously her movie. Like, it's about Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah. And then, like, oh, go ahead.
I was like, even though, she's not the main character, because Richard Sherman is obviously the main character, but it's still, she she comes on the screen and she all the focus is on her. She takes over the scenes, just because she has that presence about her. Like you can't not look at her. Kind of like how Audrey does. In a little bit of a different way because as we were talking about on the phone earlier, like Audrey is more of your classic beauty. What you think of like when you think of like a Hollywood starlet, especially from that era of Hollywood, whereas Marilyn Monroe is like the sex symbol. She's a sex symbol 60 years later. She's been dead for 60 years and she's still like the American sex symbol. So
I really enjoyed basically the juxtaposition of the fact that everything he presumes she's going to have an opinion on, it's like the total opposite. So like, oh my gosh, she found out I'm married, but she's excited he's married, and she's into having drinks, and this one's too strong, but she's a trooper and still drinks it. And I mean, she's just so like cool with everything. She actually reminded me of a character coming up from the Matchpoint movie, but yeah, it totally flips its head on the perception of what you think a female would be, down to do, and yeah, it totally surprises him and takes him off guard. It all leads up to the chopsticks piano scene, which is great fun. And then he goes in for a smooch, and she's not ready, and he's like, "That's never happened to me before." And she's like, "Strange, that happens to me all the time." So I'm not really sure how far she was willing to go with him, but she sure did a great job of kind of building up who he was as a guy and being his pal.
Yeah, she definitely gasses him up, as we say nowadays.
Oh, Stairway to Nowhere, that little duplex of theirs. That's kind of has a fun payoff later on.
Yeah, I think that stairway kind of would end up being the stairway to heaven, I do believe. If things would have progressed differently. 'Cause, I mean, I don't know about you, but if I'm this dude and I would have, got to be with Marilyn Monroe, that definitely would have been the stairway to heaven, at least until the ramifications came home later. But,
yeah.
So yeah, it's but that was definitely interesting that there was just a stairwell that was to nothing, because he was talking about, he mentioned why his wife wanted to get a house, and he was like, I don't understand why, we got all this space. And I'm like, well, you're using your staircase as a bookshelf, because they had books and all of the rails, and then later you're like, oh, well, it leads to literal nothing, that's why it's a bookcase.
Mm-hmm. She comes back looking even better than before in that white dress, and yeah.
And which she just has to have him do the straps on. So she comes down first. Yeah, I'm like, man, this she knows what she's doing. She's know what she's working with. Like she's playing this guy. She knows what's up.
So he has a little bit of guilt after this first night, and he's just like, I need to take some time off so I can go see my family. And his boss is like, what are you talking about? I haven't slept a wink since they took off. Enjoy it. We need you here. So yeah, the boss is a real hound dog, which is it's cool to see that contrast between this guy who's dancing on the line of infidelity, where these other guys are way, way beyond that. This brings us into the whole idea of what the 7-Year Itch is about, with the shrink coming in to check out his I guess book being published, which is not, he points out that this is not accurately marketed at all. Characters aren't even portrayed the same. But yeah, he gives him a little bit of a psychiatry session where he hears out the situation. He's just like, well, yeah, I'd get yourself out of that if I were you, basically.
Yeah, for sure. And he the way they did the book cover and everything, it basically made it like a murder movie, like a murder mystery kind of book. And it's like, this is supposed to be a nonfiction style book. Yeah, no, they just were way, way off there.
And then he has this whole fantasy episode where he's thinking that she's off telling or gossiping about the whole neighborhood about, their evening together, and it's gonna end up in one of her TV commercials, and his wife's gonna find out that way. So it's pretty hilarious how far out his mind thinks of what the ramifications of all this is going to be. And then it comes to where he's talking to her on the phone, and he finds out she's hanging out with this guy. I guess he kind of envies, so he's thinking she might be cheating on him.
Yeah, because they were on like a hayride.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then his brain goes in the water, like way into the deep end. And there's some phrase that in his head that he said, and then he says it to the guy later in the movie, and I can't remember what it is right now.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm in your same boat.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that image of his wife not being square with him, he goes and takes Marilyn out to go see Creature from the Black Lagoon. She's in that iconic dress. We get that iconic scene. Like I mentioned earlier, you kind of only see her legs and then her top half. You don't actually see like the full blown dress go up. But I
mean, for
the censors.
Yeah, I was about to say in that time period that was just still a big deal because it's still the mid-50s. So
then she felt bad for the monster. Another didn't expect that kind of moment.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like that seems to make sense to me because at least now modernly, you see a lot of like the monster characters are supposed to be villains, and you see people feeling sorry for them because they are the villain or the perceived villain for XYZ. That tends to be, I think, a thing that especially with females, or at least the ones I'm around, seem to have similar opinions. So.
Well, then you had Shape of Water a few years ago, which was basically Creature from the Black Lagoon, just with a happy ending with him getting the girl at the end.
I still need to see that. That has been on my list, so I need to get on that at some point.
Guillermo Del Toro.
Yeah.
Let's see, the Mothman shows up, and he's like, "Get out of here!" And then he's like, "Oh, I know what's going on." Whenever he sees Marilyn trying to use her foot to grab her shoes, it's pretty cute. And then they agree that she can't be going, up and down the stairs to stay in his apartment because it'll be seen and people will gossip about it. And so that's when she's like, "Hey, well, I just go through the store or not go through the floor down the stairways." And there she is.
Except for the thing is like they tell you that it's just him, the people's apartment that she's renting, and the two interior designers, which was the 50s way of saying that they were gay. Living on like the top floor, so it doesn't seem like, at least that's how I took it. The way it was said, it was like, those guys up there are interior designers, and it's like definitely sounds like they're implying that they're gay, but without saying it because it's the 50s.
I didn't catch that. Interesting. I think all I got was the fact that didn't like the people that rented her space out, like they said they collected African art, but they refused to put an AC or something.
Yes, that was because she didn't have AC, and that's why she was freezing her underwear. And she was going to take her fan back and spend like $3 more to get a bigger fan. But yeah, it just seemed like he obviously is taking his, I guess, precautions to the max to not get caught, where it's like he could just go up and down the stairs, and that's obviously in a time too when perception and between people was a lot bigger. Like now you see someone leave someone's house and it's like, okay, sure, whatever, like you don't necessarily think about it, but back then it was a much bigger deal.
And then he ends up having this fantasy about his wife coming home, and because he falls asleep and he sees that she's asleep in his bed. And imagines his wife coming home and gunning him down, which is quite hilarious. And then she wakes up, and Marilyn wakes up. It's like, "Oh, it's just a silly dream. Don't worry about it. Everything's cool." He's so stressed out about it that he goes into his hiding spot to get his cigarettes, but they're already out on the table. Then the guy that he is scared his wife is like hooking up with just kind of shows up out of the blue, and he's just like, he's so like out of it, like the guy's telling him flat out, like, "I'm just here to get your kid's paddle." But this is the only thing I didn't like about was his name Richard, is the fact that he won't listen to this guy at all and ends up punching him out, which I thought was a little drastic.
But I mean, he's started at this point. That's his character. Everything is drastic, like his over imaginations, what he thinks is going to happen. Period. That dream where his wife never reloaded that gun and shot it 100 times. Also, that dream, the overboardness of it is she's his wife. She has a key to the house. She still blows the door off, like the doorknob off with the gun.
Yeah.
Which obviously I guess it's supposed to be like in a fit of rage, but it's like, wouldn't you just unlock the door and not waste the bullets that apparently are never ending? But
Dramatic effect.
yes, dramatic effect.
And that brings us to the end where she gives him that big kiss and basically to tell him what a great guy she is, or what a great guy he is, and that his wife's lucky and he shouldn't wipe off that kiss because, she should be, proud of him for, staying monogamous, even though, like, despite the fact that, he could have any woman he wanted, which I think is the underlying message here. So yeah, perfect woman.
Okay. So here, that is not how I perceived that, because he had mentioned before that he got like lipstick on his shirt or something, and she thought it was like cranberry sauce.
Mm-hmm. Oh, was she believed that it was cranberry.
Yeah. And then so she's like, well, if she thinks it's cranberry sauce, just let her or something. So to me, it makes it feel like they're still trying to dupe his wife, even though he's running off to take the paddle and be a good father. And so I thought that was kind of strange. Mm-hmm. And then, he was like, oh yeah, we'll stay here in the flat and, the whole duplex is yours. And it's like, mm-hmm. So he's got a kept woman and he's going to his wife and kids. So like, that's like, I don't know. It seemed like there needed to be something else there when he was running down the street with the paddle, and there just wasn't.
And I mean, she would kind of watched out for him by throwing out his shoes. Yeah, it's a weird thing to think about, but like, despite the fact that he has lipstick on his lips, he's still there. He's still going to be like there showing up for his wife. So he could have something, but he doesn't take it, is kind of what I got out of it. Because he never does cheat in the end. He talks about how he's this monogamous guy, and to the end, he pretty much is. And this whole thing was about him kind of maybe learning more about women and, having more confidence in himself and being proud of the fact that he was monogamous because, he hasn't crossed that boundary.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a question here. So you're saying he didn't cheat despite the fact that they kissed at least 3 times. So what would you do? How would you feel? Or what would you say it's cheating if your wife came home and was like, yo, I could have fucked this guy. I didn't. We just kissed at the movies.
I would say this is an over-exaggerated premise kind of highlighting these things, not based in reality whatsoever. So yes, of course, you'd perceive a lot of these things differently in a more realistic drama like Matchpoint.
Okay, that's fair. Like I said, I just think I don't know. I just felt like there should have been some form of consequence, I guess. And I guess again, period. It's from its time, it's
mm-hmm.
It's definitely from a different era, and the relationship and the dynamic between men and women was also very different then.
Yep.
So I don't know. That's just some of the things. Like, I still thought it was a good movie. I still enjoyed it. I'm not gonna not watch any more Billy Wilder movies. I mean, hell, Bogey's character in Sabrina was also much older than Sabrina was. Although there was there wasn't the infidelity, or at least not that I recall. Maybe there was. Maybe was she dating like his brother? I don't remember. Anyway, I don't know. It just didn't quite hit me the same way as it hit you.
Okay. And I think it'd be kind of strange for it to be so happy-go-lucky and silly throughout, and then have more of a consequence at the end. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. And you might enjoy The Apartment more because it does dwell on the ramifications of infidelity. So maybe Apartment might be more your film.
I mean, maybe. Like I said, it was still good. Obviously, Monroe was really good. Like I said, I think I said at the beginning, I definitely put it in my review. I was like, this is, why men in their 40s and 50s, want the 20-something-year-old blonde. Like it's that,
Mm-hmm.
like that to a T.
Yep.
So
Yep. I thought the acting was great and so creative visually. Yeah, I fell in love with it. I can't see myself not giving it 5 stars.
I gave it 3.5, and I think I would stay. I think I'm gonna stay there at 3.5 because again, it was very well made. Marilyn and the guy who played Richard Sherman, I mean, did a very good job. Um, I think a little bit of the over the topness of the his imagination, just
Mm-hmm.
because it was so over the top. And then just like the other stuff we were talking about, just didn't click with me maybe the right way. Maybe it'll be different if I watch it again. But yeah, no, it's still a good movie. Like I said, I gave it a 3.5.
Nice. All right, we're gonna take a quick break, but right after this, we'll see if we're lucky enough to get away with it. We are back, and now we're talking about Matchpoint. This is a 2005 psychological thriller. I guess it is. Written and directed by Woody Allen, and starring Jonathan Rhys Meyers, Scarlett Johansson, Emily Mortimer, Matthew Good, Brian Cox, and Penelope Wilton. The film deals with themes of morality, greed, and the roles of lust, money, and luck in life. The synopsis via the IMDb: a turning point in his life, a former tennis pro falls for an actress who happens to be dating his friend and soon-to-be brother-in-law. So, Matchpoint. Opening thoughts?
So this was my first time watching it probably since 2006, 2007, whenever it came out on like DVD. And I was still pretty much blown away with it. I think it was one of my like earlier, like this movie is a little more artsy than I normally watch, but I was in my early 20s and this was a movie about ScarJo and about sex with ScarJo. So of course I was just like, yes, please.
Oh yeah.
So my other thing that I wanted to bring up before we delve into this. So Scarlett Johansson was in a movie with Natalie Portman called The Other Berlin Girl, where Natalie Portman plays Anne Boleyn and Scarlett Johansson plays her older sister, whose name I do not remember currently.
Okay.
But Jonathan Rhys Meyers was in a TV show called The Tudors, where he played the king, who was with Scarlett Johansson, or with the older Boleyn sister, and then wants the younger sister. He wants Anne Boleyn, which in the TV show is played by Natalie Dormer. And I just thought that was interesting that they each were in something around the same time period that had to deal with like the same characters and all of that. So I just thought it was interesting that then they had this dynamic in this movie, having had played the characters they did in a different setting.
Yeah, it's awesome factoid. So I love this movie's central premise about how life can go either way, using this metaphor of a tennis ball, whether it bounces over the net, bounces back. And yeah, that kind of shapes his our main character early. So he kind of quits the Pro Tour. He says he doesn't like traveling on tour, but it probably is because he was losing. And this is definitely a kind of a guy who likes to earn his own way, but ends up kind of getting things handed to him through his charisma. So yeah, John Rhys Meyers is a handsome, suave guy that I wish I could punch him right in the face.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, you just, he's got the accent, he's got the looks, just everything about him. And you hear people talk to him in the movie, and they're talking about, how life can go one way or the other, and about how if he just had a couple of bounces, maybe he had beat Agassi and some of the other top players, and he wouldn't be teaching tennis. So that's very interesting, and then very much foreshadowing for like the very end of the movie. So, which I had forgotten, the very end. I remembered the main thing that set up that scene, but I had forgotten about that scene. So that was a good thing to see again. Like it kind of was like, oh yeah, that's how this is going down.
So my history with Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment is I listened to an abridged audiobook of it. Don't remember a lot of that, but I was kind of dealing with how, because I mean they show him reading the book right out front, so this movie is related to that story. So identifying him with an anti-hero, the character is a brooding loner who kills two women to prove that he is a superior being, but is racked by guilt and is finally redeemed by the confession of his crime, the love of a young woman forced into prostitution, and the discovery of God. So this is obviously kind of the darker side of that story, since there is no redemption in this. It's all about the other factors there. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool that Alan kind of reworked that classic story into this modern drama.
Yeah, for sure. Like I know nothing about that, so I knew that there was some reasoning, to show him reading that, but I just wasn't quite sure what it was.
So yeah, he's definitely good at schmoozing with the rich folks, even though I guess he kind of was from humble beginnings, and he was Irish, right?
Yeah, he was a poor Irish boy.
Yep. But yeah, he can play tennis, which they all admire quite a bit because they don't play tennis as good as he does. And they're going to plenty of operas, talking about art, movies, all Woody Allen stuff for sure. I was so glad he's not actually in this film, because if you watch a lot of his other movies, I mean, there'll be serious stuff kind of going on the side, but like he's the central character and he's making all these little quirky anecdotes about this and that, and it's hilarious, but I'm glad that's not this movie.
Okay, interesting.
Great facial acting throughout to really kind of express what these characters are feeling. Like it felt like it took forever to get through this movie, even though I was enjoying it, just because there's so many quiet moments where you're just kind of meant to kind of look at a character's face and kind of break down the fact that they're probably bored, or they're disinterested or distracted or hopeful, or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, like I kind of felt the same thing. Like I paused it to get up and like go to the bathroom, and there was still like an hour left, and I was like, okay, cool, but damn, it felt like I'd been watching this for like 2 hours already or something, and normally that's like a bad thing. You're like, oh god damn, and it's like, okay, we still got a lot to go here. Mm-hmm. It's like, and I'm sitting there going, well, I remember this and this, and it's like, what else is there that gets to these points? So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he likes the sister, but clearly it's not like his main type, because he likes somebody more edgy and challenging to go after, because he likes a challenge. But she's good for the time being. Pretty awesome scene whenever ScarJo actually gets introduced. Like she's like backlit, so she almost has like this angelic presence, and he's kind of the bad boy hustler who hustles her big time on the ping pong table.
Yeah, because he's like, yeah, I haven't played ping pong, and you see the other person walking away, and she's like 100 pounds a game, and she hits, and then he just hits the big, he says, what have I got myself into, and then he smacks it, just dominates her pretty quickly, and then she's like, oh, what have I gotten myself into, and then the whole, well, you're aggressive, and then he's like, has anyone ever told you got like very sultry lips? And she's like, you're very aggressive. And so like there's that instant chemistry, and then his friend, his soon-to-be brother-in-law, walks in, and you find out she's with him.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely kind of a match with their attractiveness and like their ability to kind of be more aggressive like that and come off really strong to each other. So it's cool to see that dynamic. I guess I'll go ahead and throw in the technical merits of this. I really enjoy how the camera moves throughout this, and there's a lot of good composition to where like it's framed up and you can kind of see down a hallway kind of deal. That's always real cool to see. And not much of a score in here, but kind of bursts of opera music throughout, which kind of make things more dramatic. So,
indeed, for sure.
All right, so the plot moves forward, and let's see here. Oh yeah, he moves his relationship forward with the sister since his buddy there is dating ScarJo. They have that fascinating. Go ahead.
So, do you think that he actually had feelings for the wife, whose character name I cannot remember at the moment, or that he was just with her because he couldn't be with Nola?
I think he liked her, and the longer he was with her, the easier life became for him. But there's this little part about him that wants this challenge and wants to make things on his own and not be handed everything. So while he's accepting these handouts, he really doesn't like it.
Yeah, no, I don't think he definitely doesn't like the handouts, because he talks about that quite a lot. And even then you get to the end of the movie, which I'm sure we'll get there in a bit, but when he's talking to his buddy about picking between the two, he definitely talks about how accustomed he's become to a certain lifestyle, which I guess you could go further into. That normally is typically portrayed in movies and even to a degree in real life, that would be a woman who is used to a certain lifestyle and may not leave her cheating husband or abusive husband.
It's a good point.
Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting take. Like, I think I took it as that he liked the sister and maybe even loved her, but he just had that animal attraction, animal magnetism to ScarJo no matter what. I mean, we see that I think later on throughout the movie, especially when we get into some of the thicker plot points near the end.
I love that dinner conversation where they do get into discussing luck versus hard work. And, he pretty much says, yeah, man, it is both, because I've been busting my ass, but, kind of lucky to get in this situation. And, yeah, that long-running theme of luck and throughout the whole story and chance gets put into a great job through his future wife's father, who owns this big company. And I relate with this point quite a bit as well, because I was kind of in a dead-end job, and through some recommendations from my father-in-law, I finally got in the door of my current job, which I have excelled at ever since. So definitely know what it's like to get a little bit of a helping hand, and that's kind of what our economy is kind of about a lot of days. It's who you know, right?
Yeah, it's not necessarily what you know, but who you know. For sure.
True. But it's always nice to make that breakthrough and then actually prove yourself, which has been fun to do ever since I went through that door in my life. All right, wants to get out at night along with his that's right. So his girlfriend is trying to be like, hey, let's just stay in and we'll listen to this opera record and just spend fun time with just us. But he's just like, no, I want to go to the movies because ScarJo's going to be there. He has a crush on her. And so, yeah, he talks her into going to the movie. It's the Motorcycle Diaries, which is about the early life of Che Guevara. And, yeah, it's totally deflated when ScarJo does not show up. So that was fun to see on his face.
And if you're also interested in Che Guevara, you can check out our season 2 finale. Part 1 is about the actual movie Che, not Motorcycle. Not the Motorcycle Diaries, but connection there. Also, he did not tell his girlfriend that he wanted to go to this movie because Nola would be there. He was just like, well, we can listen to this any other time, and they're going to be there, and made a point to invite us. And then ScarJo canceled and wasn't there, and he was the big sads, as they say.
Yeah, he's a really good liar. He's very good at talking his way around what he needs. Um, let's see. Okay, yeah, he runs into her on the street later on. Their pretty festy flirtation continues as he kind of like tries to pump her up in order to do good on these auditions that she just doesn't seem to be able to do. Yeah, and they basically acknowledge what's going on between them.
And yeah, then they get to a point where she's like, "Oh, I've had too much to drink. You need to call me a cab." I don't remember exactly what was said, but it went past her over, kind of flirting and acknowledging to just, bam, here it is, and so
I forget what's I put not a good shot now, but we have some foreshadowing. So I'm thinking this has something to do with the ring bouncing back, but I'm not sure what.
I'm not sure because we go from that scene to pretty much this next part where the mother-in-law is she's all on Nola for being a shitty actress.
That has to do with him shooting the shotguns.
Oh, okay.
So they bring him out to go skeet shooting, and he sucks at it. But then the father's like, "Hey, we'll make a skeet shooter out of you before too long," and some more stuff coming up with the shotgun. Glad I dwelled on that long enough to remember.
To be fair, there's a big difference between the skeet shooting and the other thing later, but we'll get to that.
Oh yeah. So yeah, the mother-in-law, she is known to get a little drunk and start talking shit or start talking her mind, and so she discourages ScarJo about maybe you just need to pull out of this whole actress thing, which leads to our super sexy outdoors in the rain sex scene. Wah wah.
In a wheat field.
Yeah. But yeah.
Maybe there's supposed to be some sort of foreshadowing or innuendo with wheat and some. I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating, but it's just they just bone in the rain, in the wheat, and it's like, well, I don't know how they're really gonna lie their way out of why they're both soaking ass wet and wheat all are in their clothes, but yeah, sure, they're just kind of glazed over that part. I mean, to be fair,
that is one attractive lower back.
I mean, Scarlett Johansson is a very, very attractive lady. Like all-time attractive kind of lady. So,
but I would say Under the Skin did surpass this as films that ScarJo is most attractive in.
I mean, although that movie, let's be real, is weird as fuck.
As shit. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, I don't know if it's worth watching to see her naked. I mean, it's just on the internet now.
Whoa. Under the Skin's great.
Also, let's not downplay how hot she is as Black Widow, especially in Iron Man 2. Bruh.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Bruh. So he gets told he needs to go to business school. We see him in that. He's quite, he looks like he's bored out of his mind. Don't like to use that word, but that's what it shows. He gets bored a lot. Lucky bored rich people. But, okay, but he does get it, he gets to advance in the company just like he's told. So let's see, cuts him off and sees them fooling around, so goes ahead and marries. Oh, that's right. Okay, so that was at the opera scene where he's just like, hey, let's make out again. And she's like, no, we can't keep doing this. He spots the brother and her messing around, so he finally is like, okay, nothing's going to move forward with this. I better just marry the sister since I have a good thing going with her and go on with my life. And they get that awesome-ass apartment, or as the British would say, flat, overlooking, I believe that's the Thames. I think
I would believe so. So like, there's a great view, dude. Think about how much glass is there, like, and they don't have blinds or curtains or anything. So like, sure, anybody can see into your house. Which, like, look, whatever it doesn't bother me, but also at the same time, it's like, that's kind of strange. That's a lot of light. As someone, people who like to watch a lot of TV and movies, you and I, that would cause a lot of fucking problems.
Good point.
Just say.
So the brother, he breaks up with ScarJo, and then there's kind of an amusing scene where like they're talking shit about her, and he's like, "Oh, she was kind of on the sauce, wanted to be on the sauce," but he's like getting drunk at the same time. So what's he talking about? The sister who becomes the wife, she reminded me a lot of Marilyn from 7 Year Itch because of how trusting she is. Like, he's constantly like, what's his name, Richard? He's constantly lying about this and that, but she's always just like, okay, hun, I trust you. So, I mean, I guess she did grow up in this wealth, so maybe she's never been in a situation where she felt like she couldn't trust somebody, but she definitely
I think
is
his name is
not
Tom.
skeptical.
Richard was the main character from 7 Year Itch.
Oh,
I think Jonathan Rhys Meyers' character is Tom. I think that sounds right. Or Chris. It's Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right because they say his name quite a bit.
Yeah. Chris. Where's Chris? Chris.
Chris.
Where's Chris?
Chris. Shush, honey, I'm getting a shotgun so I can kill my lover.
It very much reminded me of Jason, which is from the Heavy Rain video game. Jason. That's what it reminded me of.
All right, so yeah, he learns about the fact that they broke up, and he sees her near this art gallery, and so that begins their passionate affair. And his wife suspects nothing, even though he's just like, "Oh, I gotta make a call," but then he's in some corner of the gallery with his brother-in-law's ex. So,
well, I mean, yeah, at that point, it's just, oh, look who I ran into. And then he's like, tell me your number. Tell me your number. And so she just tells it to him, and he just fucking memorizes it and calls her. And then, yeah, I mean, they're doing the deed all the time. He's leaving work, pushing meetings back.
Let's just start without me. But, I mean, things are looking pretty good. I mean, there's this, like, oil massage scene and this, like, blindfold thing, so he's having a good old time.
His wife is like, hey, we need to do it before work, and he's like, I'm gonna be late. And then the very next scene, he's with ScarJo, and they're coming back from the hotel, and he's like, let's do it again. And she's like, you're gonna be late for work. He's like, I don't give a damn. Which, I mean, I guess to be fair, I wouldn't give a damn either if I was sleeping with Scarlett Johansson, even if it was under very non good circumstances.
Gosh, I felt so bad in that scene where like they're having breakfast together, and like she keeps bringing up all these topics to talk to him about, and he just kind of keeps, waving them off. Like I wish like my wife would like bring up different conversations with me about like stuff, but I mean she occasionally does, but this lady's really into having conversations with her boo, and yeah, he's not having none of it because he wants to get down with the mistress again
all the time.
Gets confronted by that guy at that one dinner. He's like, oh, I saw you in that part of town, but he's denies, and he's super charming, so he gets away with it. Keeps sneaking off no matter what the cost. Like he's like, oh, I'm in Greece, I'm in some island and can't be there, sorry. And this
that's when he's lying to ScarJo.
Right.
A little bit later.
Finds out. Go ahead.
Let's say he's not as good at like lying to her as he is to his wife. But he also said that he was out of the country and then was out and about where he could be seen. So he definitely did not watch Def Jam's How to Be a Player for that part.
Let's see. Can't get his wife pregnant, but knocks ScarJo up. I think there's a line in there, something about how, he's so passionate about her. That's why he was able to get it done with her and not his wife.
Yeah, because she's a child out of love, and there it's just mechanical. And, the one time that they don't have protection and he doesn't want to wait.
Yeah, call after call. Like, he's constantly getting pulled away to be called. Like, I'm surprised, like, they weren't running, the family wasn't running like traces on these and figuring out who the hell's calling them so much. They have the utmost trust in this fine young suave dude.
Well, I mean, I guess also he's supposed to be he's moved up in the company pretty well. He's
Yeah.
doing well for himself. So he has to work a lot. So taking calls, I guess, isn't out of the ordinary.
And you feel bad for like his secretary at that one point because he's like, "Oh my, I need to do this for my secretary," and the brother's like, "Well, isn't your secretary away?" He's like, "Oh well, I promised her I would do this," so he can always talk his way out of it. I love the compounding nature of the conflict because it seems like it goes on a while with them going back and forth and saying, "Not yet," and keep bullshitting excuses. And I liked how that kind of like it kind of justified where it ended up going with how much back and forth there was, even though it felt a little repetitious, especially flipping back through it.
So yeah, this we're now to the point of where he had said he went to Greece and then Sardinia, and he's basically ScarJo is like, you need to break up with your wife, and he's like, oh, never, and every time is not the right time, and it's like, but when would be the right time? When are you going to tell your wife you're leaving her because you've got her brother's ex-fiance pregnant? Like that's just it's never a good time for that. So
Yeah,
I
and
guess
she.
go ahead.
Oh, and then she ends up, she catches him on the street and totally explodes at him. It's just like, you're liar, you're liar, you're a liar, hanging all over him, making a big scene. He's not into that at all. So,
Shoves her in a cab.
yep. And then that's kind of when the murder scheme starts to go into effect. And this is kind of a 40-minute process of it all kind of coming together, unfolding, and then us seeing the result.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising that someone who had apparently never really done any crime, or at least none that was ever known, that he goes and gets the shotgun from his in-laws, and again almost gets caught. His wife is looking for him, and she's about to go down into the basement, and then, hey, can you come help me with this blouse or dress or whatever? And then he walks out, almost gets caught again when she's like, oh, the housekeeper put my shirt in your tennis bag, and he's like, oh, I'll get it. And then Anne drops the shotgun shell out of the bag, palms it, and talks his way out of it.
Yep, he's a very slick talker with the flattery and can pretty much talk himself out of anything. He even seems pathetic in front of the cops later. I thought it was hilarious how he was bumbling around with the gun in the lady's apartment. First of all, he's doing this with a shotgun, which I guess makes sense because that's what he has access to, but it's such a big, like, aggressive weapon to be doing this with.
Well, yeah, but also, I mean, in England, they have much stricter gun laws,
true.
especially about handguns. So, like, the shotgun, especially, they basically have it for sporting reasons.
Yeah.
Sporting reasons, especially in, they're in high society. So, that kind of makes sense. They're not going to just have a Glock laying around. And he can take it apart and put it in his tennis bag so he can conceal it. So, but yeah, he talks his way into the old lady's house out of one meeting, or into her room, her apartment, after meeting her one time previously. So, and the ladies just completely trust him. And
well, she's a little bit hesitant, but
then she's like, then she's like, oh yeah, go in there to the bathroom, I'm gonna go in here or whatever. And then you just, at first she's hesitant, and then he starts, oh yeah, well, Nola told me this and this and blah blah blah. And she's like, oh okay, yeah, you're Nola's friend, blah blah blah. And then she pays the iron price, and she gets shot with a shotgun.
Liked seeing how he actually did get emotional about it, because I mean, he's not a total cold-blooded killer. He does have remorse and guilt, and is not used to doing this kind of thing. So it's cool seeing that portrayed as well. I thought it had a really good methodical build-up, a lot of tension towards when they finally have ScarJo's murder come in, when he shoots her whenever she comes off the elevator. I mean, shows her in the car, shows her talking to the dude out front. So builds up. And then the next thing, my next note was his fake reaction whenever his wife's like, oh my gosh, she died, she was murdered.
He's like, oh God,
that-
let me see that.
oh,
And he like
really?
runs down the stairs, still in his towel and everything. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the guy is definitely a master manipulator for sure.
Begins ditching all the evidence, and so like drops off the gun, and then ditches the jewelry because he wanted to make it look like a robbery and not just a straight up murder, to kind of create some conflict within the department. So yeah, the cops really they figure out the connection where he had been having an affair, so they question him about that.
Because he was in her diary, and of course he lied about it at first. He's like, I hadn't seen her in like a year, and then they show him the diary, and he's like, oh well, shit, and he lies his way out of that too.
Yep. It's like, oh, you don't want to destroy my whole family over this affair that's not a crime, and I have nothing to do with this murder.
I mean, he even gives them his cell phone number, like, hey, if you need to reach me, I'm here. And the one cop's like, all right, we're going to look into it. And the other cop's like, I don't think there's really anything there. And then the one cop has like this nightmare, and he wakes up and he's like, he did it. I know how he did it, blah, blah, blah. And then he throws the ring as almost an afterthought, and it hits the rail. Instead of going into the river, it bounces back onto the ground. And it's like, well, this is how it's going to get.
Well, that happens right before the first police interrogation.
I thought that happened after the first. That is right before the first police interrogation, yeah. But I remember.
We don't know the significance of the ring not going over, though.
Yeah, not yet. I just remember thinking, like, this is how he gets caught. Because, like I said, I remember the murder. Like, I mean, I remember the affair and the murder. I just didn't really remember anything after that. And so I was like, someone's gonna see him, or his fingerprint's gonna be on it, because while he wore gloves during it, this he just picked up with his hand and threw it. But it's kind of the opposite effect.
We see that he is racked with guilt. He's like trying to write late at night, and he spills his wine, and he starts wandering around, and that's where you get the images of the old lady and ScarJo like talking about like the repercussions of what happened, that he was sloppy and stuff, which I think ties back to Crime and Punishment from what I recall. But then it snaps, like you had just said, to the cop's dream and knowing exactly how it played out. But that's not going to be because what was it?
It was a heroin addict. It was like two heroin addicts and one got
junkie.
killed. Yeah.
So the junkie finds the jewelry and gets him off the hook, essentially. All's well and good, and they have the baby, and he has secured his future, and kind of looks off through the window full of regret and guilt at the end, unfulfillment, because he's just that kind of guy. So, did you like this guy?
No. Like, I mean, you want to punch him in the face kind of to start with, like you said, but at that point you're like, okay, he's trying to come up, and he's doing what he needs to, and I've always been a proponent, like, if you're with somebody and you're attracted to somebody else, you just leave. But he's been poor his whole life, and now he's affluent, he's got stature, he's got station, he's got a car that takes him everywhere, like he doesn't have to want for anything. And I think that plays a big part in the decision that he has, because he doesn't want this this infidelity and this bastard child essentially to ruin his life. But I just kind of had, and it's kind of like a dark thought, but I just had this thought while we were talking about this. So he goes through this whole situation, and essentially he makes a double murder. He kills the old lady, kills Nola to keep his, to keep everything going. But at the point he kills Nola, his wife isn't pregnant yet. So he doesn't want to lose his stature, lose his spot in the company. Like, wouldn't it just be easier? Maybe not easier, but he could do the same thing, stage the killing, except for it's his wife who's killed instead of Nola. And then he, be like, oh, well, right after it happened, I ran into Nola. We needed, I needed to be consoled. Stuff happened. She's pregnant, and we're going to be together. And his family, he's probably not going to lose his job that way. He's going to keep everything that he had before, or just only commits one murder. which obviously is not any better. You know, one versus two, what's the difference? It's still murder. But it just seems like that could have just been a different, I guess, way to take the movie. I don't know, what that would have done character wise.
I think the family being so wealthy, if that was the scenario that it went down, they would drive the investigation to get him eventually. Since, I mean, the cops essentially write the crime off because they just think it's a druggy thing, and that happens all the time.
I
But
mean, yeah, and he definitely used that, but like, I think with the, if I don't think they would have like suspected him, especially if it, but yeah,
I don't think he could kill her either, because he was. I mean, he was so devastated by killing those two people, and he was filled with remorse. But as sweet as his wife was, I don't think he could have brought himself to do it to her.
and I mean honestly, like if and I'm not obviously ScarJo's character Nola, like was every right like, hey, when are you gonna break up with your wife? Or oh, you're not gonna do it? Okay, well I'm gonna tell her that you knocked me up. Like obviously I feel like she was every bit in the right. She had no way to suspect that he was just gonna like come out of nowhere and shoot her with a shotgun. Like I think she probably suspected at worst she was just gonna be a single mother.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant film. I wouldn't say I love it, but I really, really, really enjoy it, and I think it's well made. So I would stick with 4.5 on this one.
I had it marked as a 4 and I kept it at a 4. I think it's really put together well. The characters worked well together. The actors did, and ScarJo's hot AF. So I mean, like, and that's kind of important in this movie because that's kind of what she's playing up. So
Yeah. All right, what's our future?
all right, so I had to pick from your 80s list, and at first when we first looked at it, I had a movie that was in the front running, and then I looked back through it and I debated and debated and debated, and we're gonna go with a combo between actor and director that we've already done before. So who directed the movie that quote was from earlier at the beginning?
That would be Carpenter.
Yeah. So we're gonna do the Fog, so we can get Carpenter Curtis again.
Okay.
Yeah, did that Halloween episode last year, I believe it was.
Yep.
And we did a Carpenter episode the year before that. So I think this will be our third Carpenter.
Oh, nice.
So
Cool. Works out nicely. The Fog. Yeah, I hadn't seen that. Looking forward to that. That's cool. All right, let's break out the random number generator. Boop, 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 boop. Comes up with 14. Where is 14 on my list? Oh my goodness gracious. We are going to be watching a film called Identity from 2003 by James Mangold. Synopsis: The secret lies within. Complete strangers stranded at a remote desert motel during a raging storm soon find themselves the target of a deranged murderer.
interesting.
Yeah, this randomly got so a lot of the stuff on my Wheel of Destiny list is like random stuff that people have recommended that I'm just like, yeah, I'll watch that, but I never make time to watch it. So Identity and The Fog. So a little horror New Year's kind of stuff coming up.
Yeah, and it's real funny actually that it's that movie. So this is my category for you to pick for next time.
Okay.
So I want you to pick a movie from the year that we met, which is 2003.
Oh.
So doesn't matter anything, something you've seen, something you wanted to see, just whatever floats your boat. I didn't really have anything planned. I kind of had forgotten to pick a category or even have one in mind. So I went through a bunch of things, and at first I was going to do something from like 1985. And I was like, oh, we could do it the year we met. That would make a little bit more sense. So that's where that came from.
The top movie from the year we met is Kill Bill, followed by Return of the King. Just going to read off the top row stuff. So we got Lost in Translation, Finding Nemo, Old Boy, Pirates of the Caribbean, School of Rock, Memories of Murder, Love Actually, Elf, Big Fish, Matrix, Reloaded. Yeah, that'll be fun to comb through all these and figure out, ooh, I think I already know what it's going to be. We'll see.
Awesome. I mean, yeah, and like obviously we both love Tarantino. Kill Bill is my favorite movie. So I mean that's Old Boy's like my second favorite movie.
Is that a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge?
Nah, that's I just thought it was very interesting. We kind of already did Kill Bill like a little bit. We didn't do it like hardcore, like its own thing, but we already kind of did that.
Tale of Two Sisters was this year.
Oh yeah, no, the 2003 is loaded. Yeah, I went into I just typed in 2003 on Letterboxd and someone had a list and I just was like, oh dude, this is just off of this list alone, it is loaded. And obviously I don't care if it's foreign, just go find you something. I'm very interested. You already said you had something that you already knew what it was going to be, so I'm pretty interested to see if that holds up.
Yeah, Dogville came out this year. Maybe this should be the first revisit episode.
I will veto the living shit out of that. or we'll do it and I won't rewatch it and I will just lament about how many times Nicole Kidman was raped in that movie.
13 came out that year. Hadn't seen that. House of a Thousand Corpses. Haven't seen that. Oh, maybe we could go into Ben Affleck's Daredevil.
Oh, big oof. I didn't realize we were doing my podcast for this.
Schlock Talk. Nice.
That movie
Cool.
That movie does not have a cheap enough budget for that, but still big oof.
All right. And if you'd like us to answer any questions on the show, just hit us up at the Average Joe's Movie Clubcast at gmail.com.
All right, Justin, why do we do this show?
Because we love talking about movies. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
You and I have unfinished business.
Oh? And what's so stinking about it?
Non mi faccio il feeling. Spirito Santo.
I think this just might be my masterpiece.